Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's episode is Thoughts Rants episode 12. Uh, when I start, if I get any more fans on here, or subscribers, I should say, then I will make the channel bigger, hopefully better. But as of now, I'm with 65 subscribers, which I appreciate. Thank you very much for that. So, excuse me, I've been getting over a sickness I've had for a couple of days now. Uh, so I figure we talk about some things, something that happened interesting during the week, or last week, I should say, last couple of days ago. And then I'll probably talk about some other things, but okay. Oh man, hey, being sick is not good. Sorry about the cough, guys. So a couple of days ago, Kathleen Kennedy told the world in her own way that she is now going to resign, or I should say, let me rephrase that. She's retiring from Lucasfilm. She's officially going to retire from Lucasfilm, and and Dave Filoni and Lynn Wynn Brennan is taking over her spots. They're going to be co-presidents of Lucasfilm. Dave Filoni be working on the creative side, and Lynn Wynn is going to be doing the business side of Lucasfilm. So it's a balance there. Now, I'm a fan of Dave Filoni. He gave us Clone Wars. He gave us other Star Wars projects. But I don't know anything about Miss Lin Wynn at all. But that doesn't mean I'm not willing to give her a chance. But I am grateful that KK is gone because 14 years of Kathleen Kennedy ruining Star Wars was enough for anybody. And when I mean ruined, I mean she ruined it. Now I'm not one of these guys out here that thinks that Star Wars is dead. There's no hope for Star Wars. There's no hope for the a galaxy far, far away. I am a type of guy that sees the light at the end of the tunnel, and I've always been that way. Well, I should change that. I became that way several years ago. Because I like to believe that with every franchise, there's ups and downs. As I've always said before, every franchise, whether it's Star Wars, Star Trek, MCU, DCU, Doctor Who, Harry Potter, whatever you can think of, has its ups and downs, right? Like a roller coaster. Now you got people online, and they're always going to be there. They're saying, "Well, Star Wars is dead." They're the naysayers. Mind you, these are the same people that either are bought and paid for to say that, so you get more clicks for their YouTube channel, or B, you just don't know what the hell they're talking about, or C, both of them. I go with C. Uh, Star Wars isn't dead. If anybody didn't realize, there hadn't been a new Star Wars movie since 2019, since The Last Jedi, I think it was. And Rogue One was a great movie. I liked Han Solo for what it was. It wasn't great, but it was okay. I just hated the sequels. But to all those that love the Star Wars sequels, more power to you. I have nothing against it. If you like it, by all means, enjoy it. I would never tell you different. Uh, Thinking back about all the people that screwed over Star Wars, at least Bob Iger admitted he was wrong for what he did. And when Lucas sold Star Wars to Disney back in 2012, he gave them the treatments to the sequels. Lucas wrote out certain other parts, the treatments for the trilogy for chapters 7, 8, 9. Iger chose not to do that. So did J.J. Abrams, Kathleen Kennedy, and so on. And Iger later on admitted that he was wrong. At least Iger did that. I gotta give Iger credit where credit is due. Iger made some mistakes, but at least he fits a lot of his mistakes. But guys like Value Renegade won't tell you anything different about that. They will just, it's this way and that's that way and that's how it is, which is not true. I refuse to believe I'm sorry. I refuse to be one of those guys that constantly thinks negative of a franchise. Again, every franchise has its ups and downs. I don't care if it's Star Wars or Star Trek. They all do. So, I, for one, am glad KK is gone after 14 years. Hopefully, what is coming now with, Dave Filoni and Lin and so on will be better and what we've had so far. Because I gotta tell you, man, Kathleen Kennedy really didn't know what the hell she was doing. I mean, The Acolyte proved that. That was the worst Star Wars show I've ever seen in my life. People can say what they want about Mandalorian Season 3 or Boba Fett or Obi-Wan, whatever. There were some great things in those shows. It was Acolyte that had no redeeming value to it whatsoever. And it really didn't. At least I did so. If someone else out there like Acolyte, again, by all means, enjoy what you like. I would never tell you different. Now that that's over with, I want to talk about something a bit more different here. In 2016, and no one's here. That's all right. People can watch on the replay crew if you want. In 2016, two big movies came out that year. One was BVS, and one was Captain America: Civil War. And people are not gonna like what I got to say, but I don't care. It's my opinion, and it's just how I see it. People need to understand something about BVS. Warner Brothers has treated DC Comics poorly for decades. It always did. When Warner Brothers bought DC Comics in the late 70s, they showcased Superman, Batman, cartoons, and so on. And, I'm grateful that they did because, sorry guys. So, but I mean, I know we saw Flash, in 1990 and stuff like that, but you got to see a little bit more later on down the line with different shows like Arrow and stuff like that. But still, I always felt like that Warner Bros. Is always like trying to keep DC Comics like on a very short leash, but put in a locked room somewhere. At least that's how I look at it. And moving forward to the Zack Snyder era, but BVS. Now, BVS came out in 2016 like Civil War did, right? But I gotta tell you, man, BVS got messed up. It has its good moments, and I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's not. I'm not saying it's a horrible movie. It's not. It's a good movie. But I think Warner Bros. Rushed that. I really do believe they rushed it for the simple fact that that movie would have made a lot more money if they would have did the Batman movie before BVS. I really believe that because with Man of Steel, excuse me, with Man of Steel being damn, Man of Steel being what it was, the Batman could have made a lot more money with Ben Affleck, and I think it would have. And then by that coming out, because Superman came out in 2013, if the Batman would came out in 2014, you would have had by the time BVS would have came out, you would have had more money for that movie. Now, I'm gonna say something that's gonna piss people off. Again, my opinion. You know, that's not Doomsday in that movie. That's not Doomsday. That's a resurrected Zod. That's basically Frankenstein's monster. That's not Doomsday. There's no way in hell that that's Doomsday in that movie. You can call it Doomsday, but that's not Doomsday. I'm sorry to tell you that, but that's not Doomsday. Now let's get down to the meat and potatoes of this whole story about the situation between these two movies. BVS came out in March, if I remember correctly, and made $874 million worldwide at the end of the box office. Captain America Civil War came out a couple months later, and it made $1.155 billion at the box office. Now, you're probably wondering why that is. Well, first of all, Civil War is a better movie. It is. I'm sorry, it is. Because it continues the story of what happened from Winter Soldier into this one. BVS didn't do that. They should have did the Batman after Superman and before BVS. It would have carried over to that. Because Warner Bros. Was such in a greedy way of thinking because they saw what the MCU was doing that they wanted that Avengers money. And they rushed the DCU. The DCEU. They rushed it. And which they did. They rushed it. And when they didn't get what they wanted, they blamed Zack for it, which is not Zack's fault. But Civil War got to have their flowers. I mean, it's a better movie, it's a better story, and to me, the best thing about BVS was the warehouse scene. But with Civil War, the whole story, the whole movie is good. Now, you might say, well, Sokka's just being biased. Yeah, okay. You can say that. You're probably right. I'm not going to argue that. I had an argument with a guy some years ago, around 2016, about this movie. And he was coming down on the news Captain America movie coming out because he was a pro DC guy. He was an idiot anyway. But, so we talked about it, and, and I was pointing out what I saw. He was pointing out what he saw. He just wouldn't let up. And I said, well, we're going to find out by the end of the year when the box office comes out for both films. I was right. He couldn't handle it, but I was right. The point I'm making here is Zack Snyder is a good director. I've never said anything negative about him being a good director. But Zack is not the blueprint. I'm sorry, that is the most dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. Zack is the blueprint. Oh, because Christopher Nolan said in an interview that he's a blueprint. That's an opinion. At the end of the day, that is an opinion. He is not the blueprint. And if you want to talk about blueprint comic book directors, we got to go to Richard Donner for that, for Superman 1978. But what do I know? I'm just a guy complaining on the internet. Now, here's an interesting take on all this, which we're going to segue into this one right now. Netflix might end up getting Warner Brothers. I'm against it. I think Paramount should do it, but because I think Paramount's a better deal. But I think Netflix will probably end up doing it. Do I like it? No, because Netflix is a very woke company. What are you gonna do if Netflix gets it and they decide to bury Snyderverse? Now, let me explain something to that. There's a difference between Snyder fans and the Snyder cult. I know both sides. I got outed, but I got basically kicked out by the second half of that expression. I never claimed to be a Snyder cult fan. I liked some of his movies. I got the 3 movies he did for DC. But see, these people, they expect you to like go along into the abyss with everything that they agree with, that they see. I don't do that. Nor will I. And if I had to be on my own, then so be it. But Netflix is a woke company. I mean, look what they just did recently with Stranger Things. You know, so hypothetically speaking, if Netflix does get Warner Brothers and they woke it up, would these people be happy or would they be upset? Now, let's be real here. They don't care about Warner Brothers. All they care about is Snyderverse. That's it. And the creator of the hashtag movement will keep making the same video over and 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 over again to say the same talking points. That's true. But people are gonna say they're gonna do what they want to do, regardless of what I think. But what I was saying about BBS is that I actually like that movie, and I think it would have made a lot more money if the Batman would have came out before that movie. I think Warner Brothers really messed up for the simple fact that they started great with Man of Steel. That was their launch point right there, Man of Steel. They should have went right into the Batman because Man of Steel came out in 2013. The Batman should have came out in 2014. By the time 2016 came around, which would have been BBS, those stories from those 2 movies could have carried over into that and would have made more money than what it already made. But Warner Brothers was so much into a rush to try to catch up with the MCU that they rushed everything. And they really kind of ruined Zach's vision by doing that. They should have let Zach do his thing and build it up better. I'm telling you right now, if Batman would have came out, Ben Affleck's Batman would have came out in 2014, BVS would have been even bigger. Because people would have been, it'd been like Godzilla versus Kong. But again, I blame Warner Brothers for that. And Warner Brothers has always treated DC very poorly in a lot of ways. And they really abused Zach, I think. I've always believed that. But back to the point I was making before, if you go against a narrative of a group of people that are pushing a hashtag because they want something to come back, be prepared for a backlash. Never once said that I was against Snyder. Never once said I was against the Snyderverse. I just simply asked simple questions. They couldn't handle it. And because I don't blindly go into the abyss. It's nothing personal, it's just how I see things. I got outed and kicked out basically unfriended by Skywalker for asking that question. And then I got fucking attacked by a guy named Leon for asking that question. Real educated guy there. And my former co-host decided he wanted to unfriend me. What are you gonna do, right? Hey Sergeant, how you doing, man? So We live in a dangerous time in today's world. If you ask questions about something, people don't want to handle it. They don't want to hear it. They just want to attack. I come from an old school way of thinking, man. I've always asked questions about something. You don't have to agree with me. Again, all these are opinions, but people don't want to hear it. They want to blindly go into an abyss. I never understood that. And I'm not attacking Snyder Cult. I'm not, or Snyderverse people. I'm not. I'm not saying. I'm not suggesting to attack them. I'm not suggesting to go off on them for what they love. Never gonna do that. Never gonna say that. People gonna love what they're gonna love, and that's just how that is. And it's fine. My only thing is, if you can't, hey, mom, I'm not attacking Snyder fans, but I've seen how people are, online. Whether it's fans or the cult, whatever. I'm not doing it. I won't attack people like that. But which is kind of messed up, But there are people like that will attack those that question things, even if you question things in a decent way. The scary thing really is that there's a biasness. Everyone has a biasness about something, you know. And if you're not careful, you can allow your biasness towards that thing you love to take over. It happens, but you don't want to admit to that. That's just how things are, I guess. But again, I look at things differently than most people do. I always did, whether I'm right or wrong or indifferent. I'm fine with that. You know, I've never been a leader. I'm sorry, I've never been a follower. I've always been on my own, and people can't seem to understand that. You know, I make no apologies for who I am. But I'll say this though, I do think Netflix is gonna buy one road. Now I've looked into this thing hundreds of times. They don't officially own it. I'm sorry, they don't. Not yet. They're still in that middle of that bidding war. And they can give out any of those press releases they want, but they don't own it. They do not own it. I'm tired of hearing it. They don't. They own it. They're trying to get it. Paramount's trying to get it, but I do think Netflix will probably end up getting it. I'm just wondering if they're gonna woke it up. And I don't think Snyder fans care about Warner Bros. Being bought by Netflix. They care about Snyderverse. They don't care about Warner Brothers as a whole. If anything, David Zaslav is the real problem here, other than even James Gunn. James Gunn's DCU sucks. Without question, it sucks. Again, if you like James Gunn's DCU, more power to you. I won't say any different. But David Zaslav really lied here. Because David Zaslav said he's going to protect the brand. He didn't protect anything. But somebody pointed out a question to me the other day. We were talking about Cavill and things with Netflix and stuff like that. And I didn't think about it until he said it. Now this person said this. I didn't say it. This person said it, and I'm gonna say what he told me. He says Henry Cavill would not work for Netflix again if how they treated him with The Witcher. And I thought about that for a second. And I thought, yeah, The Witcher season 1 was great. Season 2 was kind of like all over the place, but Cavill did walk away from that because he didn't like the fact that they went off the way that they did, the character and the stories. So it made me think, did they woke up The Witcher? I know Cavill didn't like it and he left. So if Cavill won't go back to Netflix because of that, and Netflix buys Snyderverse, or buys Warner Brothers, which owns Snyderverse, but Cavill wants to work with Zack, but Cavill doesn't want to work with Netflix. Again, this is all speculation. Now, Paramount buys Warner Brothers. Zach has a friendship with Paramount, and he can go over there, and Zach will go over there, and so would Cavill. I don't trust Netflix. There's some things on there I watch, and there's some things I won't look at. But here's another point. Netflix the other day, the one of the co-owners of Netflix said that they're willing to do a 45-day window for all films if they get Warner Brothers. I like that idea. I'm not gonna knock that, because Warner Brothers movies deserve theatrical. Well, then again, all movies deserve theatrical. Yeah, and I'm not going against what Mikey said. No, I would never do that. No. But all movies deserve theatrical. No movie that's made by a studio shoot just goes streaming and that's it because it's not fair to the artist. 17 days isn't enough. It should be a lot longer than that. But we'll find out given time. But again, I think Paramount's a better deal. I truly believe it. But I think Netflix will get it. And there's something about Netflix that rubs me the wrong way. You know, I know Hollywood is trying to get past all the woke era. Yeah, I saw that, and I'm happy about that. Mama Bear, I really am. That is good. I appreciate that because it's 17 days is not enough. 45 days is perfect. You know, and then they can get their money back from the fans. So I'm grateful for that. That's how it should be. 17 days was never good because that's just you ain't gonna make anything like that. But I try to look at things differently than most people do, and I rub people the wrong way. But I gotta be honest, man, at least to myself. And because I hear people say what they want and I gotta feel the same, say what I want. So that's just how it is. It's you know, I'm never gonna be one of those pure negative type of people that you see online, like saying that Star Wars is dead or DC is dead or Marvel is dead. I'm not gonna say that. That's pure negativity. Every franchise has its ups and downs. It's a roller coaster. I don't care who says what. Every franchise has its ups and downs. But I will always believe in my heart, man, that as much as I respect the DC and Snyderverse and all that, to me, the MCU is better. That because that's my biasness, and I admit to it. That's my own personal biasness, and I'm fine with that. You know, I feel more. I like Marvel characters more than DC characters. Does not mean I hate DC characters. Just means I like Marvel characters better. I grew up reading it. I have more of a connection there, and that's what it comes down to. Some people see that's a bias, and that's fine. I'm not going to change your way of thinking about it, and you ain't going to change mine. I'm getting to the point, man, where I'm getting to that level. I know in my heart where I want to start saying certain things about certain things that would aggravate people. And I'm getting to that point because I've gotten to the point, man, where I'm seeing what people are saying about what they feel. And they have their right, they have their opinion, and I respect it. But I think I should have mine. And if people don't like it, go talk to the wall. Because the next time somebody tells me something that I don't want to hear, because they want to be an opinionated jackass. You know, like what I gotta say. But well, I know I'm just complaining on the internet. I hope, I hope that, I do hope that. Let me say this again. Let me say it this way. I know when Warner Brothers gets bought, they're going to be sold. No argument there. They will be sold. Whether it's Netflix or Paramount, whoever, they will be sold. I do hope Snyderverse does come back. I do. I would like to see Zack finish his story. I really do. I really do want to see Zack finish his story. He deserves it. But if it doesn't come back, then every single person that pushed for that to come back is going to look real messed up with egg on their face. Because, and I'll tell you, man, you're going on a big F. Every studio has its own agenda. And if I find out, if Netflix buys this thing and they decide not to go along with that story and go along with Gunn, which I think is a bad idea, and I hear that people are saying sell Snyderverse to Paramount, I'm going to laugh. I'm going to fucking laugh. Because I that'll be my way of saying I was fucking right. And I'm not going to care. I'm not going to give a goddamn care. Because you have a built-in audience with Snyderverse. That thing is capable of being a money-making machine. We've seen it. It's capable of being a money-making machine. If you do nothing with it, and you go with James Gunn's crap, then everybody was wrong. And that's the sad part. Because there's no way in hell Superman should be made into a joke. And the fact that he is makes me sick. But at the same time, if you do bury Snyderverse because you want James Gunn stuff to stick on it in Netflix, I'm gonna laugh because I'm laughing out of stupidity on all of it. So what are you gonna do then? Are you gonna sit there and say sell this to Paramount? Are you gonna continue to fight, or are you just gonna give up? It's a no-win scenario here. And it's fucked up. And people are not thinking this way. People are automatically going into the abyss thinking it's a done deal. It's not. It's not a fucking done deal. James Gunn has a contract for at least to 2027. Now, I know that's a year or so, but he's talking about working on the Batman Brave and the Bold and having that come out in 2028. Imagine that. Imagine if he gets to Netflix and they up his contract way past what it is already now. You know how he is. He's not going to have two different Superman or Batman running around. He's the reason why Superman got his show canceled out the CW. Because he can't handle that type of competition. He's probably still throwing a fit over Matt Reeves' Batman. Which, by the way, The Penguin is still a great show. But, people think that this is a done deal, and it's not. It's not. I'm sorry, it's not. But it will be soon enough. James Gunn is a mistake. He should have stuck with Marvel. You can't write Superman as a joke. You gotta write Superman as a serious character. And he's writing it like it's a Guardians of the Galaxy film. And it's not. Two different type of characters. That was my problem with Zack Snyder, with that whole objectivism crap that he did with every character. Because he believes in objectivism. He wants everybody to be like Rorschach. And I'm sorry, not every character is like Rorschach. You cannot write every single character that way. You cannot write Superman to be a goof, and you cannot write, every character to be like Rorschach. You gotta understand the character you're writing, because every character has its own personality. But people want to think that this is the way to do it, and that's it. It's not. People need to really look at how character development works. Zack is a great director. Watchmen proved it. Watchmen's Super Punch proved it. Rebel Moon proved it. I just think he kind of had some issues with his three films. And it's not about Superman killing Zod. That didn't bother me. It's not about Batman doing, killing everybody with his machine guns. That didn't bother me. Ben Affleck's Batman would have been a great film. I want to see that movie. It'd be a lot better than what James Gunn's going to do, that's for sure. But at the same time, you're going to have people on the other side saying, "Sock, you're wrong. We're going to support Snyderverse no matter what." That's fine. Do what you feel. I'm never going to tell you different. But don't get mad at me for doing my questions, or telling me you're going to unfriend me because I asked my questions. I shouldn't. Bad Dan himself said I shouldn't have asked my questions. That's why I would have unfriended you too. Hey, man. Do what you want to do, buddy. I'm not mad at you. You want to unfriend me? Go ahead. I'm not. I don't hate people for that. But you're not going to silence me. And I'm tired of I'm tired of the hypocrisy. And every once in a while, I hear people say, certain things, whatever, and they have an opinion, and everyone should be entitled to their opinion. Whether you agree with it or not is fine. It doesn't matter. You should be entitled to your opinion. And there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that when you're in a group full of people and everyone's on one side and you're on the other side, and you dare say something that they don't agree with, they will attack you. Trust me, I know. I was watching this video the other day about somebody, I forget the YouTuber's name. I never saw him before. And he said, there's a difference between Snyder fans and the Snyder cult. And he made out some very good points about what he was saying in the video. I didn't agree with everything he said, but he made out some good points. And I was listening to him for a while, about an hour-long video. He was going over all the different things that Zack Snyder did. And as I said before, I've always felt Zack Snyder got screwed over by Warner Brothers. He did. He got screwed over by Warner Brothers royally. Both him and Cavill. Which is unfair. They didn't deserve it. But the guy made out some other points that Zack messed up in some things. But yet people hold him to, they call him the blueprint. I'm sorry, he's not a blueprint. And I agree with this guy. He is not the blueprint. Zack's not the blueprint of comic book films. He's not. And I don't want to hear this whole fucking thing like Christopher Nolan wrote this opinion piece in a magazine. It's an opinion. Just like my thing is an opinion. It's not meant to be taken as fact. Richard Donner, I would consider to be the blueprint. He did the first Superman movie. That movie's still good, and it still holds up. Okay, Sam Raimi, to me, is a better director. Again, I think because he did the Spider-Man movies. Tim Burton came before Zack did. Nolan came before Zack did. David Goyer came before Zack did. But yet everyone keeps putting this fucking blueprint on Zack. And it's bullshit. And it's straight out bullshit. He is not a blueprint. He's a great film director, but he's not the blueprint of comic book films. And I'm not gonna back off that. I'm not. It's not gonna happen. Again, I wouldn't even want Sand to be called that because Sand, Christopher. How do I say this better? Richard Donner will always be the blueprint. You know, if you want to label somebody with that. But we've gotten to the point in this world where people seem not understand that Zach believes in objectivism. And you probably don't know what objectivism is. Okay, I'll explain what objectivism is. Objectivism is a very cynical way of doing things. You're either this, you're this one way, and all characters should be this one way, and that's it. Think Rorschach or Watchmen. This was the problem between Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. Steve Ditko believed in objectivism. When Stan Lee came up with the idea for Spider-Man in the early 1960s, first person he took it to was Jack Kirby. He didn't like the way Jack Kirby drew. He's like, no, he made him too muscular like Captain America. He said, I'll give it to somebody else. But he appreciated that Jack Kirby drew the first sketch of Spider-Man. So he took it to Steve Ditko. Ditko read that book on that philosophy on objectivism. It is a fucked up mentality. It's pure cynical. And he wanted to make Spider-Man more like a Rorschach type character. Very vindictive, very judgmental, very just cynical all the way across the board. Stan was against that right from the get-go. He wanted Peter to be what he is and how he is today. This led to the problem between Stan and Steve Ditko was this objectivism. Okay? Now, here's another thing about Steve Ditko most people don't know. Ditko believed that the person that draws a character created the character and should own the character. Bullshit. It's not how that works. Stan came up with the idea. It gave the, it was his idea. If it weren't for him, Ditko would never have even knew about the character. It was Stan Lee that came up with the character. But that's the difference. And that's what objectivism is. It's a very cynical way of thinking. And I don't agree with the cynical way of thinking. I don't like it. It's a very closed-minded, very one way of doing things. And there's no breathing room there. There's no type of expansion to the character. And that's why objectivism doesn't work, in my opinion. But again, what do I know, right? I'm just a guy complaining on the internet. So, all right, guys, I think I will probably cut it off here today. I'm sure this video will probably circulate somewhat, which is fine. Maybe I'll come back maybe this weekend and do something. I haven't decided yet. But again, now people don't have to agree with what I have to say, and that's fine. I don't blame you if you do, if you don't. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say, regardless of what anyone else says. And it's just an opinion. You don't have to take it to heart. You can ignore it, and it's fine. I respect that, At the same time, don't get mad at me because people don't like what I have to say. Because they want to sit there and continue with their fucking bullshit. Until next time, ta-ta for now.